I got fired and went after the boss's money, his hotel, and his marriage. Back when I still was in university, I used to work at a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel very urgently needed new personnel, so I cut a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts, so I could still visit my courses and exams. Speaking some extra foreign languages, I also got a little bonus each month on top. The old owner was a great guy. He owned multiple hotels, so I rarely saw him. But when he was in the house, he always made a point to have drinks with the staff, chat with us, and if we were free, he even invited those at the front desk to fancy restaurants who were not on shift. Fast forward. I had worked in the hotel for a few years now, and was nearing the completion of my studies, so it wouldn't have been an eternity until I had to quit anyway, as I was of course more interested to work in my field of study. As part of my deal with the old owner, I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to visit my courses at university during the day. To make up for my privileges, I had picked up the habit of doing some extra work in the dead of nights other shifts would normally have to do, when I on contrast could have sat around and stared at the walls. People were grateful for the help in the beginning, and we became a rather tight-knit group. But over time, people rotated in and out. When the old owner retired and his a-hole of a son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much. I never found out the exact reason for that one. I was at that point nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical tasks to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the manager's network account. One night while doing my list, I logged into the manager's account and email to do my job. Then I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know it's not nice to snoop, but of course, I read it. It turns out the new owner wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with the bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner hate me. No idea if he had other reasons, because to be honest, these seemed very weak to me. But he couldn't fire me without cause. On top of that, I would be owed severance if fired. And generally, there were not enough bodies in the shift rotation without me. Though the new owner didn't seem to understand that point, as the emails told me. I looked for more emails concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager, and the new owner. I was of course not CC'd, as I was the hated topic. The employees didn't like me hogging the night shifts, because those paid better, and for every night you worked, you got paid the night bonus. The manager was the only one rather neutral on the matter, and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to make a hostile work environment so I would quit of my own volition. I was furious. I thought about a variety of reactions, from egging their cars to burning down the hotel. But I settled on a less crazy method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 a.m. asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer. So for sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I made photos, printed them out, made copies, and filmed the whole ordeal just to be sure. My uncle told me to sit tight and see if things got worse, or if it was just bluster, and so I gave it a few days. And things did take a turn. Snide remarks about my looks, clothing, and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the colleagues were just as professional as before, but the conspirators always left extra work for me, or pawned off crap duties they normally had to do on me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work, just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One guy even started to threaten me with violence, but I kept clenching my butt cheeks. I would not give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I am a big boy after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work I was not obligated to do, which in the end was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day, my uncle, with bundled proof of the email and all the documented harassments by my colleagues, served the hotel my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly, the manager went white as a sheet when he realized where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive vacation in France to deal with this. Their counsel advised me to settle, so I accepted my severance and a hefty bonus on top. Enough money to last me until the end of university without work. But that was not all my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money, but in the next step, I went after the hotel. I had used all the spare time during night shifts alone to document every last violation of city, council, district, state, and federal law I could find. That went from minor things like some harmless mold under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law, on the grounds of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years back. So every renovation or change in floor plans needs to be signed off on by a committee, which can take ages. There's also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for keeping the building intact as is. So with my uncle's help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month, everything from health, building code, fire safety, to the finance and work police crawled all over the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors that shut the place down. The new owner had some substantial renovations to the top floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. So the new owner had to pay back the grant, pay fines for unauthorized altercations to the building, endangering his guests because something wasn't built right according to the fire code, and had to close down shop until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on the violations accumulated, which tanked the business once it had reopened, as the newspaper article led to horrible reviews. In the end, to afford the fines, repayments, and building costs, the new owners sold their hotel. As a cherry on top, all the a-holes who tried to harass me out lost their job. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too, but they didn't do anything to stand up for me or help either, so I don't feel too much remorse. And the revenge cherry on top was that the new owner, whenever he was in town, used to bring home escorts, which in my country is not illegal. But he was married. It took some doings to get that information to the new owner's wife, but one of my former colleagues who had quit before this had all happened had her email, so I let her know what the new owner was up to when he was out of town. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will. Caught because he tipped the waitress $50 with my credit card. To jail with you. This happened nearly 10 years ago when I was a college student. I was working full-time and going to college full-time. After my morning chemistry lab, I drove from campus up where I worked, only to realize my wallet was missing from my purse. I had used it that morning, but it was nowhere to be found. I called my credit card company, and sure enough, there was a recent transaction at a local bar for a large tab. I think any normal person would have claimed fraud and called the rest of the wallet items a loss. But I immediately called the police to report my wallet as stolen, either while I was in class or perhaps some other time during the day. The police told me to contact a different jurisdiction since school was on a reservation. I called the reservation police, who told me it's also not in their jurisdiction since I wasn't sure the loss occurred on campus and I had discovered the loss elsewhere. Cue my frustration and the budding vengeance. I'm a people person, and having worked retail operations for years, I had a good sense of how to communicate with employees. I called the restaurant where my card was used and gave a description of the situation, along with the last digits of the card number. The luckiest part was that the woman on the line happened to be the server. She gave me some key information that she legally should never have provided to someone who wasn't the authorities, but I think my story appealed to her. She said the tab was so high because they left such a huge tip, and the guy who used the card said his girlfriend was treating him to lunch and drinks, hence the female name on the card. As well, he was with two people who paid for their own food and drinks with their own credit card. I asked her for the name on that second card, which she gave up without thinking twice. If that wasn't shady enough, I took advantage of a customer database to find a phone number for the uniquely named non-stealing gentleman who paid for his own tab while dining with the thief. I built up the nerve to call the innocent guy a couple of days later, claiming to be a private investigator. I calmly warned him that he would be considered an accomplice to the crime if he didn't provide the name and phone number of the person he ate with at that specific restaurant. He was nervous and didn't want to help, saying that he should call his lawyer before talking to me. I told him, as a private investigator, I would ensure that he is not held accountable if he would cooperate. He could only provide a name, but no phone number. Without the thief's phone number coming up in that customer database, I turned to social media. The name pulled up a local private profile. At the time, Facebook allowed banners to still be visible, which, if I remember, the Stone Age of Facebook was basically a status. His status was complaining about a chem lab test that I too was about to take. I didn't recognize his face, but I can now confirm it was stolen from lab if my professor could ID his picture. I printed the Facebook page with his picture and status and brought it to my chem teacher. I explained the situation, and he told me the students sat at the corner of my table. It all made sense, because in chem lab, we'd put our bags and purses at the front of the class so as to not contaminate them with whatever we worked with. That was when he had stolen my wallet from my purse days before. Working with my professor, the campus police came in during class and arrested him. Best part, he was on probation for some other misbehavior, and so was actually put in jail for this crime. I wasn't part of the trial or anything like that, but I did explain my tactic to the reservation police, who patted me on the back. Oh, and I received compensation checks from his prison for like $2 each until my claimed $50 fossil wallet loss was remediated. As a much older person, I hope he has his life together. I didn't remember much of him in class, but I was a very focused student. We all make mistakes, but his youth seems to be defined by a string of bad choices. Looking at his name in public records since shows he hasn't quite found the right path. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.